Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Okay, there. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. All right. Just trying to sort out. Okay, I gotta turn this thing off. Okay. Doing the
complicated.
The live streaming thing and like figuring out if it's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Oh, you know, Pat's had trouble with it.
Oh yeah. It's not. Yeah, Neil had to set. I don't even know how it's set up. He did it.
Yeah, he has to do it as like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Last time at the planning board, they had people sending notes that like, we can't see it or something. So.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna double check. That the link I put on the agenda is the one that is actually streaming right now. It is. Okay. It's weird that there's also like this delay between what we're saying and when it's streamed. Like there's a couple of seconds delay. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be really confusing.
Well, yeah. Anyway, it's up. So
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm just pulling up all the other documents here.
I've got two different laptops going here, so I can look at notes and look at maps at the same time. It's going to be so
I was going to try to see if I could somehow like finagle this thing to ice my neck while I'm doing this.
Oh, what did you do to your neck, girl?
I have a pinched nerve.
Oh.
It's horrible.
Oh.
Yeah, it acted up like 3 weeks ago, and it was really debilitating for 2 weeks. And then I was making progress, and we went on we had planned a camping trip, and we were able to go on it, and it actually got much better on the camping trip. And now that I'm back at home and just sitting in front of this computer all day long, it's getting worse again.
What does that tell you? Is it just your neck, or is it in your arm too?
It goes down my arm. My arm. I have numbness in my arm, which has gotten a lot better, but it's still there. So somebody joined by phone. Ask them to unmute. I know who this is. Hello?
Hi, it's Rose. It's Rose.
Hi.
I was at a Black Lives Matter march in Kingston. I'm driving home now.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to mute again.
Okay, thanks. I'll put your name on the phone. Okay. Rose. Hey, Hope.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Have your remote classes started up again?
Yeah, we had one day of asynchronous learning on Tuesday, and then today was our first synchronous day.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be for the whole semester?
So far, it's just for September.
Oh.
But we'll see what happens for October. We have no idea.
Yeah.
Where's Rich? Hey, Rich.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
All right.
Hey, man.
Hi, everybody. I'm in my
Hi.
car.
Hi.
Rose, instead of your phone, we see a big telephone instead of your face.
Someone else is joining by phone. That's Susan. Hi. Gosh, this summer has been a whirlwind. I guess it's not summer anymore, but it just feels
I
like
know.
I haven't seen you guys in a while.
Trying to find a good spot to be. Okay.
Is there any update on when we might possibly meet in person again?
No.
What is that supposed to mean? You mean when there's a vaccine? When is that Rich? Who said that?
Yeah.
Rich said it.
It's interesting, like some municipal boards are meeting in person, like with distancing protocols, but I don't know how those decisions are being made. And I don't think any of the New Paltz boards are meeting in person right
I
now.
think we're waiting for the governor to, if he's extending the order or not, which he waits until like the day before it expires before he decides. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And then with a whole bunch of new provisions, it can't be met.
right. If you have to have a really giant space to meet in or something.
Yeah. I'm supposed to attend a meeting in the village of Athens next week. That's supposed to be in person. I'm not sure if I'm going to go, but
Are they offering a Zoom option?
no.
Oh, that's not right.
I have to ask. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Where's Athens?
Up in Greene County.
Okay.
It's like north of Catskill.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has a cute little lighthouse.
It's a very cute little town. There's a nice little brewery there.
Oh, so it's right on the water then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Let's wait just a few more minutes, maybe. See if anyone else joins.
I know Janelle is trying to, I think, attend the joint town village board meeting tonight. So I don't know if she'll try to hop back in later, but depends on the timing of this presentation we've got going on.
Okay. Yep, it's like 2 more people are waiting. Hello. Hey, Ted. Hey, Kenji.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good.
Me too.
Should we wait another minute or two? Does anyone know if Yoni is planning to attend?
He didn't email anything that he wasn't gonna.
Yeah. Well, here he comes. Hope, would you be willing to take the minutes for this meeting?
Yes, I can.
That's great. Thank you. Hello. All right. So let's get started. Grab my agenda. Great, so I'll call the meeting to order at 7:33. And don't have any public comments. So the first item is approval of the minutes for July 8th and July 22nd. I know I sent those pretty short notice. Did people want more time to review those, or did you have a chance to look at them?
They look pretty good to me. I've got to read through them, but anybody else?
I looked through them. I'm willing to offer a motion.
Yeah, the one correction I had on the July 8th was just the timing that the meeting adjourned. I think was a typo. It was night. Was it 8:43 or 9:43?
Well, it was the duration of the YouTube video.
Oh, okay. I see.
Necessarily a time.
I see. I wrote that down. And okay. That's fine. Never mind then. We can have a motion.
Move for the approval of the July 8th and July 22nd minutes of the respective meetings as presented.
But second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So that's great. Okay, so the next item is the tree permit application for 49 North Mannheim. And I also apologize, I didn't get to forward that to you until fairly late. I'm hoping enough of us had a chance to look at it that we could make a decision at this meeting.
I just walked by this evening. It's 5 houses from our house.
I rode past it this afternoon as well. Those are 2 really massive trees.
Yeah.
It's wow, big trees.
I drove by this evening too. It seemed like, so there were some notes from the building inspector that there's some damage to the northern tree, which I concurred with. It looked like they'd already had to take it down a major trunk of that tree. So that one looked like it was more structurally compromised, but the other tree looked pretty fine to me. It looked like maybe it could be trimmed a little bit away from the lines, but pretty nice maple tree.
So that the north one, that was a silver maple, yeah?
I think that was a Norway maple, but I didn't get a close enough, like from the bark, the northern one.
Yeah, but aren't the northern maples, okay, I really thought it was, because the silver maples are really brittle. They break easily. So seeing those hang, it was huge and hanging over the wires, you could see why they'd want to take it down. But the southern tree looked, I thought, really good.
Yeah.
So Ingrid, I think we went over this last time. So what is our legislative abilities? Are we allowed to, is it a recommendation, or what are we enabled or expected to do by legislation?
We either have to approve or deny the permit. We can approve the removal of just one of the trees and not the other. And we can make a recommendation or a condition for there to be replanting of a tree. Although my understanding is that there's no enforcement in the law. So it's up to the person to comply with our recommendation. Go ahead.
Can I just say that while I'd hate to see those trees come down, I feel really uncomfortable telling somebody in the village or in the town that they can't take down a tree on their property if they're concerned about it falling on somebody's house or wires. Those are huge trees. If we denied the permit and then it toppled, I would really struggle with that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, trees, I got a chance to drive by. The trees look fine, but they are right over the wires. Their house is right there. It's a heavily wooded area to begin with, so I think while we miss 2 trees, I don't think it's a terrible loss.
I have a dumb question. We're the town board. Doesn't the village board have jurisdiction over this, or do we have the trees?
It's in the town.
Yeah,
It's in the town?
that's how the boys is the town.
Yeah, there's a weird area of the town that's like an island in the middle of the village that includes North Manheim.
Yeah, north of Henry Du Bois to Millbrook, it's a little enclave.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I mean, I understand the safety concern. I have to look at the application again one more time. I thought the concern with did they cite specifically the concern about the tree falling on a house?
Well, number 1, right-hand corner, electric wires. Number 2, big branches, hang over neighbors, electrical wires, trimmed a couple of times. I planted trees on the right side of the property, red maple, Japanese, electric wires. So I would propose that they're talking solely about electric wires in their application.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I understand being like I'm not crazy about this law. I also don't personally like to be telling people what to do with the landscaping in their yard. My personal feeling would be to approve cutting the tree on the northern side of the property that was more damaged, and recommending a pruning of the tree on the southern side, because it is a really nice example of a large maple, and it seemed to be healthy and not endangering a house.
But even the northern tree, I mean, it's feasible. You could prune that also for the. I mean, I would agree it's damaged. It's more damaged than the southern tree, but at the same time, it didn't look like it was in imminent danger. I mean, I've voted for, I think, every single tree application so far, mostly because of traffic concerns, line of sight, or it's dead, or something like that. I was not impressed with either tree as a candidate to be cut down. I would move that we deny the application in whole.
Can I just go back to this whole feeling like, you know, we're a volunteer board. We're not elected officials to make this kind of a designation. Could we say, you know, we recommend, we support cutting down the northern tree. We recommend you prune back the southern tree, but in either case, we urge you to consider replanting because I don't know, that feels a little more comfortable for me. I'd hate to see the loss of these trees, but I also feel really uncomfortable making this designation.
I agree with you. And I think like making a suggestion saying like, this is what, you know, we're asking you to do on like just as asking, but not in saying it's denied, because I agree too. It's their property. And as much as we don't want it to go down, I got involved with things when I was on the Landmark Commission with telling people what to do on certain things, like a barn that looked like it was going to fall apart and telling people they had to spend all this money repairing the barn. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, the tree, and we, you know, they have to spend a lot of money pruning, fixing, getting the tree people out there. I know we could recommend something. We could say, you know, if it's possible, try to save the tree or something. That's what we'd recommend. But I don't want to be big brother here either.
Kenji?
Yeah, what is the role of like if it's worried about tree branches falling on electrical lines, is that something that the utility company can deal with?
I don't think they will do that proactively.
Oh, okay.
No, I think they do. They came down my road. They were down my road almost for a month, trimming trees that were around their electrical lines.
Right.
No matter whose property it was on. They came and they trimmed a tree by the road on my property.
But they won't
So they do come around.
From the road to the house, they don't touch. From the road to the house, it's your responsibility. And those trees are hanging over the lines that run from the road to the house. So if those wires come down, it's on the owner to pay for it.
Yeah, I know. No, they were trimming around their own wires, not the house wires.
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree with you on the service line. They won't like trim those, but I think if your service line is knocked down, the utility company is responsible for coming out and fixing it. But if it's from the house down to the meter, then I think it's on you.
Yeah, and also, like, if you call them up and say, hey, will you come trim this? They're not gonna, like, there's
right. I agree
with that. I see your argument, Yoni, I guess Susan, about approving the permit, but then making recommendations to the contrary, like not to remove the trees, but to pursue pruning. I think if we're going to do that, I think we need to be potentially discussing this law further and making some specific recommendations to the town board, either about the repeal of the law in full or about some kind of revision to this law, because I don't feel like we are able to. I'm not sure if we're implementing it as it was envisioned or if it is implementable. I mean, I drive by people who've cut down trees all the time, and it just seems so arbitrary that a handful of people go through this application process.
Yeah, thanks again for trying to bring up that idea of
Janelle here. Yeah, I've heard our group over time have this same struggle with numerous applications. So I think you make a good point that maybe it's time to revisit this law in a generic way, how it can be applied or not applied.
This is a sign that says we've been a Tree City, USA for 22 years. It may be a stipulation of having that designation that you have a tree law. We have to look into it.
Maybe I don't understand the law as much, because again, just thinking about Landmark Commission, like when we would recommend, okay, to do something, and they weren't allowed to take a barn down and they took it down, there was no repercussion after. So I was always like, why do we bother even recommending something when they did totally the opposite, or we were supposed to have some kind of teeth in it and say, you cannot destroy this barn, but then they took it down anyway. So if you recommend to somebody, if we say, do not remove the tree and they remove it, what happens?
Probably nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I think that Stacy might work out some kind of mitigation where they replant a tree on their property. This person has already planted multiple trees on their property, which we saw. But that's my understanding, and I think there was at least one permit application before I joined the board where that happened, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not sure that they even were forced to plant a tree to replace the trees they cut down in, you know, what's the word? Against the denial of the permit. Yoni?
So I think there's a general agreement, and I would suggest that we add this to an agenda in the future where we sit down and review the law and decide if it makes sense and how we can apply it in the future in a way that we can actually make it meaningful. So maybe we just make a recommendation to the town board, or maybe this is moot. I don't know, but I think it's probably worth the conversation because clearly we're not able to feel comfortable implementing it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, and I'm not sure if we should be having a full board discussion or if it would make more sense to select a handful of people who, you know, 3 of us maybe, who want to have a conversation offline and then bring back some options or some points to the rest of us. Amanda?
Maybe you should talk to Stacy about what is actually in the code and how she would enforce it and what the expectation is. I think what I can understand is certainly because these are residential properties, they never come to the planning board for the kind of review that a site plan does, where then it would be, you know, part of the site plan application. So, you know, maybe you need to find out from her how she's dealing with any enforcement of this, because I know you've had problems with this before. People either don't plant the new trees, or I've seen them planted and then they just let them die. They don't water them. They just, so.
Yeah. So can I just read some portions of the law while we're together? So for the findings or purpose of the law, it states, the town board finds that the destruction and damage of shade, ornamental, and evergreen trees and the excessive and indiscriminate cutting of those trees in and on private property causes barren and unsightly conditions, creates increased surface drainage problems, destabilizes soil, increases municipal cost to control drainage, impairs the stability and value of improved and unimproved real property, and deteriorates the aesthetic and historic values of the community, as well as the health, safety, environment, ecological systems, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of New Paltz.
Wow.
So that's like...
that's tricky to prove. That's tricky to prove.
I think that's, you know, it's obviously it's like a tough spot, but you know, this isn't a complete arbitrary thing. You know, the trees are massive. There are actual concerns there. I think, I mean, I'm in favor of approving it. I think if ever one comes down, you know, if a tree permit comes down our way that is just completely arbitrary and it's not a wooded area and it's really going to diminish, you know, all the things that you just said, then I think I know I would feel comfortable denying it, you know, whether the person listens to us or not. But I think this one has some substantial reasons, and you know, I think as long as there is any reason, really, I think an approval should be granted. You know, private property and all that stuff, especially with a real reason.
So the issuance or denial of permit shall be based on the following criteria: the physical condition of the tree, the proximity of the tree or trees to existing or proposed improvements, the effect of the removal upon ecological systems, including the erosion potential of the property, the effect of the removal on the property values and aesthetics of the neighborhood, any hardship or danger to the public or to the person or property of the owner of the subject premises, and the interference, if any, of the tree with a permitted use of the property. So I think, you know, in terms of like the proximity of these trees to existing improvements, like utility lines, would be a grounds for approval of the permit. But we could also still make the recommendation, say that in our opinion, we think these trees could be pruned. And that would be our recommendation.
I mean, that's what Yoni had said.
Yeah.
And you're backing up. I think that's great. I mean, approve it and say, we think you could do other things, but you do have, we are granting you permission to do it. Maybe take a look at some of these things.
Any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I think somebody made a motion to deny, and it wasn't seconded.
Right.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Can I just be clear what exactly it is that we're approving?
Taking
The
down.
wording.
Approval to remove the 2 trees with the recommendation that the owner reconsider pruning them as an alternative to removal.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. It took a long time to get those trees to be that big, and just replanting, saplings is not in their lifetime. It's not going to happen. So, you mentioned having a smaller group. Can somebody go speak to the applicant? Have a conversation with them?
Yeah, I guess I've never done that before. There's not like a process set up for that.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's against any rules or anything. I have a really hard time voting for the death of 2 ancient beings. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just very sensitive, but still.
I know, and I agree, I agree with you on that, but I also don't feel, so that goes, and I don't, like, my neighbor cut over 50 trees on my property, claimed he didn't know is his property. He thought it was his property instead of my property. And I tried to take legal action, and they said I had to have a certain diameter to be able to even do anything. And they weren't as thick as they said. So it's like, I couldn't even do anything about 50 trees that we weren't home, and the neighbor cut them down. So.
Well, yeah, these people asked permission. So I really do think that they deserve a conversation. Your neighbor didn't ask anybody's permission.
No.
And, it's always easier to say, I'm sorry, than to ask permission. That's for
right,
sure.
But so on my property, if I want to cut a tree down, do I have to get permission?
If it's within 55 feet of the center line of the road.
Okay, so it has to be by the road. Okay.
Yeah.
50.
Otherwise, if you clear more than a 1/4 acre of land roughly, then the clearing and grading control law applies. And that's
Okay.
what our next item on the agenda deals with.
So could I suggest that we recommend approval, suggest in our notes that they should reconsider and look at potentially trimming, and if that's not an option, that we strongly urge them to plant a replacement for those 2 trees.
I second that.
Okay.
Would that work with you, Rich?
Absolutely.
How about Rose? Could you live with that?
I have to live with it. I just think that we should be more judicious about ancient beings. These are ancient beings, and they deserve to be protected. That's why the conversation was my idea.
We could suggest low-growing, smaller trees that are not going to obstruct the utility lines.
No, or move them back farther. Take them away from if they're going to replant, it would be pretty stupid to replant under the wires again.
Yeah. Okay. So Yoni made a motion and Susan seconded it. All in favor? Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
And Ted, are you? What's
I'm
your?
voting. I'm opposed.
Ted is opposed. Okay. All right. Who would be interested in diving into the tree law further? Yoni?
Well, I really do think you have to look at to see if the Arbor Day Foundation required a tree law in order for us to be a tree city. I do think you have to look into that. Yeah, yeah. It's probably on their website.
I don't think the town board's going to remove the tree law. It's whether or not the EnCB should have this review, authority or not. I mean, that seems to be what's bothering you, right? It could be up to the building inspector. They could decide to put it on the building inspector, but I guess they felt EnCB was appropriate, place for it to reside, because the village has a shade tree commission, so it's like that. So I think that's, if you just want clarification on what they expect you to do or what your authority is, then that would be worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else interested in looking into this further? All right.
I think Kenji's was volunteering there. I saw his hand go up.
Oh, there's his hand right there.
All right.
That's someone else's hand. I'm being strangled. I'll work with Yoni.
Okay. So I agree it would be good to follow up with Stacy about this. And I'll follow up with you guys both. Okay. Okay. All right. Did we just lose someone? Like we lost some. My Zoom screen changed.
Janelle, did we lose?
Janelle, yeah, we lost Janelle. Okay. All right. So, okay, the next item is the Heppalet Rose Lane clearing and grading control remediation. And so you saw the new submission. There was a response, which I may have forgotten to share. I think that I forgot to forward that. There was a response from Andy Willingham, which basically said he was okay with what the owner was suggesting in terms of reporting on the kind of the status of the restoration project over the next 5 years. The owner is basically proposing to self-report and document progress. I was a little bit not convinced about that, I guess. Or at the very least, maybe that's fine, but I still think that the wetland inspector perhaps should be required, to make, at the very least, a visit at the end of those 5 years, but perhaps on an annual basis. I'm not sure. We haven't dealt with something like this before, so I don't know what is typical in terms of the monitoring of maintenance.
Didn't we propose or suggest an approach like once a year inspection, and then every 2 years was by the wetlands? I mean, I remember us putting together some kind of plan.
I think our recommendation was an annual inspection by the wetlands inspector.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the only thing then we'd have to, this is coming to the planning board on Monday. And so for that, we would just have to figure out if we have to have the guy put some escrow money to cover that.
It's a good idea.
Well, it's not a good idea, it's a must, because someone has to pay the wetlands inspector, and it shouldn't be the town.
He's got plenty of money. He's got plenty of money. He could do it.
Well, he's planting 100 trees, so he's spending a lot of money too. But I agree. But just so you know, if we want the wetlands inspector to be the person to do, if that's going to be the recommendation, which I think is a very good one for the planning board to take your input, then the planning board will have to, deal with that.
I would say unless this person can show he has credentials as an environmental professional, then no, he is not qualified to report on the monitoring.
He's Wall Street.
He
doesn't know that. Yeah.
Well, he might have had a degree in horticulture. We don't know, but that's right.
No, I don't think so.
So we could say that so you guys are going to follow up on your recommendation to the planning board and just say you recommend that a qualified environmentalist or horticulturist do the annual inspections and, such as the wetlands inspector?
Yes.
Okay.
And that the applicant be required to post escrow in the expected amount of the first 5 years of inspections. Right?
Yeah. So we can just, I don't think the planning board will let that slip by. They'll have to figure that out. So what they do is they put it in, they put a certain amount, they have to give it, and at the end of a certain time, if there's any left, they get it back. So.
Okay. I can send that to Pat.
Great.
And
were you happy with what he was proposing as far as the way he's going to do the trees and everything else, like what he said he was going to do, where he's going to get them, what kind they're going to be, all that?
Yeah, that looked fine to me, and the fencing looks good, and yeah.
So one thing you might want to think about is what happens if a year from now the wetlands inspector, or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, goes out there, and how many of them have died, and we say, well, okay, they don't have to be replaced, or what's going to be the
Yeah, that was another thing I was wondering about, is whether at the end of 5 years, it seems like the wetlands inspector or whoever should make a recommendation to the planning board about whether any additional planting is needed, or
so like you might want to think about that, like as long as there's 50% of them are still alive and growing, or or do you want to leave it up to the wetland inspector to make a determination?
I think we should probably leave it up to the wetlands inspector to make a determination, because it's hard to say with these plantings. 50% of the plantings could die, but if other stuff comes up around it naturally, it might be fine. So I'd rather defer to a professional to make that determination.
Okay. I think we need to make it clear that we don't want the wetlands inspector to just go out and go, yep, I saw trees, that there's some kind of what it is we're expecting in his annual report, as far as the amount of coverage, that was desired, and that it is being achieved, or something like that. Don't leave poor Mark hanging there going, well, now what am I supposed to do about these trees?
Yeah, I think part of that determination is whether the vegetation has recovered sufficiently that the deer fence, that whether the fencing needs to continue to be maintained for the vegetation to grow. Because if that fence is not maintained, even if the vegetation grows pretty well and is surviving, the deer could come in and destroy it.
Right.
If it's
So
not big
that's-
enough yet.
Yeah, so that needs to be clear that he's not just observing the trees and seeing if they're alive or dead, but if the fencing is being maintained to protect them, something like that. Just think about what you want to put in your memo. And then whoever's going to be there Monday can read it and discuss it, or if you feel any need to comment on it or elaborate.
Okay. I'll try to draft something and circulate that. So I don't think we had determined a schedule for September and nor for October. So we should take volunteers.
I can tell you on Monday, besides this one, we'll also be discussing Homeland Towers and Trans Hudson if Stacy has provided and BNL have provided their reports in time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in Stacy's report on the zoning. Let's see.
Bob, don't let it happen.
Someone speaking, oh, that's Susan.
Oh. I'm sorry.
So is anyone willing to volunteer for next Monday? All right. I need to look at my schedule because I'm not sure I can do it. And what about September 30th and October 26th?
Actually, there's October 13th as well.
Oh, there's October 13th.
It
I don't
got
know why I
moved to
didn't have that.
Tuesday.
Okay.
of
Yeah, I was just looking at the calendar on the website, so I didn't see that there.
Yeah.
If no one can do this Monday, I can do it.
Okay.
I can do the 13th.
Thank you.
Just,
I could probably do the 30th.
Can you shoot me an email though to remind me of the timing and everything?
But
Sure.
which day is left? Which day is left?
October 26th.
I could do the 26th.
That's a Thursday.
What day of the week is it?
I think it's a
Thursday.
Thursday.
No, the 26th is a Monday.
Oh, that's a Monday.
of
I'm sorry.
October.
Okay, good. I could do the 26th. Put that
It was the
here.
30th. Oh, actually, I said I would do the 30th, but that's not good for me. September.
30th is a Wednesday because of Yom Kippur. We got bumped out of Monday.
Oh, wait,
Susan,
so
would you be able to
wait.
do September 30th instead, and I could take the October 26th?
let me just look. October. Wait, September 30th is a Wednesday.
Correct.
And when are the Jewish holidays? I just want to make sure.
I think that Monday.
18th, I
Right.
think, is Yom Kippur.
The 18th is Rosh Hashanah and Yom
that's
Kippur.
it. Yeah.
I
18th
class
is
on Monday nights
27th.
on video, but if it's on a Wednesday, I can do it.
Okay.
What
So-
time are the meetings again?
7?
7.
Yeah,
Okay,
my
so
class
you meet,
goes from 6. I can do the Wednesday meeting.
which the 30th, or else I can do the 30th, either way. Or we could split it, Rose.
Yeah, we could both go.
That's September 30th.
Because I haven't done it in a while. That's
Okay, so put yourself down, and then if you can, for some reason, I'll back you up. Okay?
Rose, you can
Okay.
take.
September 30th, right? September 30th?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, and is
So
it
I've got-
on Zoom or are they in person?
Zoom.
Okay, so I'll
Who's
get
doing the
link.
14th?
Rich.
Rich.
If somebody else wants it, they can have it, but I'm willing to do it.
Thank you.
And then Yoni's doing the 13th and Ingrid's doing the 26th?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Rich, if you just tell Kenji that he raised his hand, he'll do it for you.
No, he's clean shaven. He looks too nice. I can't be a bully.
All right. Well, so I think that's it for the planning board right now. We're still waiting to hear the Sporting Clays application. Supposedly they were withdrawing it, but they haven't actually withdrawn yet. So that wetlands violation is still hanging there. But if and when they do withdraw the application, the wetlands inspector has indicated that he would involve us in the mitigation of that situation. So just so that's on your radar. I'll keep you posted. That's the one where they built the road through the wetland to expand the shooting range and started using it before they had gotten any permits. All right. So we have a lot of maps to review, and I'm not sure what the best way to do this is. I can share them. I can share my screen, but I don't know if we want to go through all of them or if you only want to pull up a few of them where there were comments. I went through, I'm very familiar with these types of maps, and I've worked with this consultant in the past on other projects, so I know his style.
So Ingrid, I had kind of pulled out about half of them that we would maybe pay attention to. Some of them are simple and everybody agrees, like, yeah, make the boundaries darker or make the colors more distinct or whatever. I don't think we need to go through all 28 of them, but I do think there's somewhere there was a lot of discussion between sub-team members, Nate, the consultant, back and forth, and they kind of left it up, and the consultants kind of, well, tell me what you want to do. So I think, getting the EnCB members' thoughts on that would be very helpful. And also, we've also asked for some of them. In fact, there's one in particular for Susan with it's about historic. So, but we're asking CWASP, Historic Preservation Committee, and other folks that have been looking at it to also provide some feedback to the Climate Smart Task Force. But so maybe we can just hit on the ones that have the questions.
Sure.
So if you want to show the maps.
Yeah, tell me which ones and I'll do that.
Okay, so the first one I have on list is number 11.
11.
And then, yeah, you had a lot of good comments to this too. But we can come back to those. Some of those are a little bit simpler, so we'll come back to those.
Yeah, I was not a fan of his color scheme and symbology all around on this map, and he's done much better ones showing wetlands, so I suggested he copy the symbology from a different map he had done. But this map shows DEC regulated wetlands, this NWI wetlands, that's the National Wetland Inventory, and then probable and possible wetlands.
So that was one of the questions. Some people were saying, why do we want to show probable and possible? And especially if they're on slopes. And then Nate came back and said, actually, you really should show probable and possible even on slopes because it's important. So because, the consultant was going to take them off, but I think we don't want them to do that.
I highly recommend keeping them on. And I'll give you a good example is that Terrific site. If those possible wetlands had been shown on the wetland map, he might have known that his project was located in a wetland. There are a lot of locations that are mapped as possible wetland. This is a term that we use for the somewhat poorly drained soils.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of wetlands in those areas. So it's not all of those areas are wetland, but it's a good indication that there might be more wetland there.
So the consultant also says if vernal pools are identified before they finish this project, they could be identified locally identified boundaries could be added if they're available in GIS. But then he said would have to discuss if that would be modifying the state federal boundaries to match local delineations, if it would be a separate layer. So
I had
Have you seen
originally had a lot of ambition to do wetland mapping, which I've done before, but I haven't had any time to work on it. Yeah, I mean, for vernal pools, it could be point locations. That would be easier to do. Yeah, but unless someone else is qualified to map wetlands, I'm guessing this comes down to my time availability.
I was wondering how much Mark could help us if I have a little bit of grant money still left that Rick isn't going to spend all of it.
Interesting. I don't know if I would pay Mark to do it, honestly, because
Not that big of a
charges
job.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other people who would be able to do it for less money, is my guess, and I could talk to you about it.
Okay, why don't we follow up on that then? The other thing he said is, would this be best left for the online maps but not the print maps? I think, yeah.
Would what be best left for the online maps?
The locally identified boundaries and vernal pools. I think he's asking if they should be a separate layer or.
Yeah, I was thinking, I agree with him. The locally identified boundaries are also so, they're going to be so minuscule and minute in a map like this. I don't think it makes sense, but it would be good to include in the online map if we have it.
Okay.
The vernal pools is a different thing. Again, I think those are like, you could just add points to the map.
Points. Okay. We'll give him that feedback. Okay, great. The next one would be number 13. Okay, so this is one where Nate gave him a lot of input about renaming tier 1 matrix forest blocks to matrix forest blocks, darken the boundaries, scale bars, labels overlap. He wants to add the northwest, no wait, what is it? The NWBP, the biodiversity, the northern Wallkill biodiversity areas. And
to this map.
Yeah. And then he would use the discussion, the descriptions of the areas that were identified in the draft CEA in the text, as far as discussing the habitats. So he's saying to add the northern Wallkill biodiversity areas as a single layer with a numeric code, otherwise too busy.
No, put that on a separate map.
Separate map, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then the next one is 14.
I just have a question is whether other folks had a chance to look at these and had questions. It's worth like, feel free to pipe in.
I know, because this all also came pretty late in the, like yesterday, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I apologize for that as well. I mean, yeah. I mean, the maps have been out there for a while and asking for people's comments, but I think, and mostly people's comments were, I have trouble seeing the boundaries of the town and the village and things like that. Or the colors are hard, too many greens are hard to distinguish between different shades of green, things like that. So is this 14?
Yeah.
Okay, the question here was, because the legend showed index values, and Nate was suggesting to show percentiles.
You should just
listen
to Nate.
Layers.
Nate knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, that's where, I mean, if people can see over here on the side, I'm seeing a bunch of people's pictures here, so I have to like.
Oh, sorry. You can minimize that.
Yeah,
this is a data set we developed, and we have like a whole symbology developed for it, and he should just use that.
Okay.
It'll make it easier to understand. And also, when you if you're comparing with the online map and this map, it'll look the same.
Okay. Nate also made a comment to remove protected lands from references. The title or the legend, remove the protected lands.
Yeah, I think that's just like this data source block of text in the bottom left corner on the maps.
Yeah.
I think originally from the base map, it has protected lands, and then that was still on other maps, even though they had been taken off of other maps.
Okay, the next one I had was 19. Okay, now here's where it gets confusing because this is conservation and recreation land. And this part about protected lands with public access, someone was concerned that there was confusion about that. And then Nate's comment was protected lands on this map are difficult to see. Maybe because it's like what color is what here. So originally,
I had a lot of comments on this as well.
Yeah, okay.
And we created a separate map, which I might even be able to pull up without too much difficulty, for the community preservation plan, which broke out the protected lands into different categories based on the ownership and status of if it's basically if it's owned versus a conservation easement. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Because my preference would be for this map, which is more focused on conservation and recreation land. I think it would be better to have more detail broken out. Let's see, these are the large format versions. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Because the consultant is confused about the input he's getting. So we want it to be useful so that people see what's what.
So I broke it out. Are you seeing this new map I pulled up? By ownership status, and school district could come out here. There's certain things that could be taken out here that don't need to be on this map, but kind of breaks it out by the different the ownership, and then these private conservation easements. So I don't know if this is too much detail for that map or not. This going back to the other one. First of all, there's some issues with calling this protected land with public access because not all these properties are protected.
Exactly.
They're publicly owned, but they're not protected. Like this Clearwater Park landfill property, that's not protected. The county property is not protected. The wastewater treatment plant property is not, that's not formally protected. There may be others, I don't know. So that's one thing. And then I think lumping in this other protected land, I guess that's just, it's basically saying that that's mostly conservation easements, but it's not all, some of it's public land, that the water supply land around the reservoirs, and it's a bunch of stuff lumped together. I feel like this map, because it's about conservation, it would be good to have more detail.
Yeah, its title is conservation and recreation. So conservation, once you say recreation, you assume the public's got access to it. But, so I think that's the thing, is to distinguish what's protected with public access versus what's privately held or is protected. So if someone buys the property, they ought to know. It should be that there's an easement or there's some kind of deed restriction on it. But But it doesn't always mean that you can't do anything on it. It means there's certain activities that can't happen.
Yeah. So I suggested one quick fix might just be to say this is public or protected land with public access, and this could be other protected land hyphen no public access.
Are you guys proposing that you overlay the second map on top of this map?
I was suggesting breaking it out a little bit more, but it may be not necessary for this.
Okay.
Well,
I think we were looking at things in a much more detailed way for the community preservation plan.
Right.
And maybe that level of detail isn't necessary here in terms of who owns what and whether it's a conservation easement versus a property that's owned by a public entity.
Right. I think the goal is that a member of, a landowner, a member of the public, a developer, one of the boards could go to this to see where conservation and recreation lands are. So if they're looking at something that's adjacent to or nearby or even in, that they would be aware of it.
Well, I think ideally once there's going to be the corresponding online map, and that could have attributed information for these properties. So you could click on the parcel and actually see who owns it.
Right. He does say that the report can explain some of this further, but if you have concerns about how it's depicted on the map, that he wants additional guidance on how to proceed. So, yeah, I think, if someone was to look at this and say, oh, where's all the recreation places I can go hiking? They need to know they can't always go hiking in every place that says it's protected. So, yeah, okay. All right, well, I'll give him these notes, and if he's still confused, we may have to have a quick call, but we'll go through it. Okay. Okay, the next one I had was number 20. Okay, let's see. Actually, okay, the main thing here was that it was about, so Nate had suggested he put in a trailhead roads in the preserve, trail parking for Millbrook Preserve, trail parking for the Nyquist Preserve, and trail parking where Empire State Trail.
Those comments were referring to this map because this is the map that has the parking areas on it.
Oh, I thought it was from map 20, scenic resources. They're kind of overlapping.
It must have been a mistake because see, this is the map that has those trailheads on it.
Okay. And then so what the consultant said is the scenic roads end at the town line since they were locally identified scenic roads and do not extend beyond the town borders. We have no data for local scenic roads outside of New Paltz. But obviously there's a New York State scenic byway that's 4455 that probably should be, maybe that's on there.
I think that does go, continue.
Okay. Okay, well maybe that one's okay then. Okay, so that was maybe a boo-boo. Okay, 21, this was a question that maybe specifically Susan would like to weigh in on. And it has to do with being labeled possible rather than candidate. Apparently
I think this is really a question for the Historic Preservation Commission because I worked with John Orfatelli on creating these data and mapping them, and we use these terms in a community preservation plan, so I don't know if he would want to change them.
Okay.
But Susan, I don't know if you have thoughts or participate in this.
Did he base this on the, we did an inventory maybe 10, 15 years ago, the inventory that was done?
that
Yeah.
Neil Larson did? Okay, so that's the one I worked on years ago. I'm assuming that all the corrections that Carol Johnson made are included in this. I would assume that. So, because there was a lot of us that were really lay people trying to figure out, like driving on main roads, trying to figure out, like with information on some of the houses, but I'd have to look. I'm on a smaller screen, so I can't see. I looked at it before, but if you went over it with John, I would assume, it's good. I'll look over it again, but again, I'd probably want to talk to John while I was looking over it, with him, because I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't want to change anything he said if he worked with Ingrid on it. I respect John's work and Ingrid.
So the question is the terminology of candidate as opposed to possible. Someone felt that candidate sort of implied or inferred that it was, there was an active consideration for designation as historic as opposed to possible, meaning,
Candidate, yeah, it came from John and the HPC looked back at those that inventory, and I think Neil Larson had actually proposed some possible historic district designations, and what the HPC did essentially was identify the properties that they thought aligned with those geographic areas, like those hamlets or kind of districts of the town. And that's how they selected these properties. So rather than like draw a big rectangle and say like this is the proposed district, they identified the historic properties that were within that area that would be eligible. But it's, again, I think this is really...
I'm having a hard time understanding the map, though. I'm kind of, it's a little confusing to me. I can't understand it. So I know areas that we, like when I was on the historic commission years ago, I know we had dreamt about making certain areas historic areas, but we had such a difficult time just even landmarking a house then. So we had such fights with people. People were terrified to have their house be even considered because they thought we were going to just throw a whole lot of limitations on them with what they can do. So people aren't real excited about having their houses part of a historic district or candidates for it. That's what was my experience with it.
Yeah, I really think this is a question for the HPC because, again, the purpose for identifying these properties was largely about getting those parcels into the list for the community preservation plan so that they would be potentially eligible for this funding or, like down the line. But I think the main information that's important is the historic register properties and the actual, like the designated landmarks in the town.
The ones that are designated already, you're saying?
Yeah, and that this other information is probably more for, I don't know, again, I think we should just defer to HPC, but hopefully this is helpful for other people to know that this information exists and that HPC has been working on this.
Right. Okay, well, I'll see if John weighs in on this. The real specific question was whether these should be called candidates.
Again, I think we should defer. If they're going to keep it in, I think they should use the same language that's referred to in the community preservation plan.
Right, that seems simple. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fine with whatever John would say. I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. So now we would go to number 24. Okay. This is another terminology thing. So apparently, yeah, the assessed land use, which will be described in the text, it's the land use that the properties their taxes are assessed on. So that's where they're coming from. Some things that are called residential are ag, or have ag designation, are being used as farms. It's all, kind of confusing. Rick would like to not include this map at all. I don't know how we feel about that.
People are oftentimes confused by this information, which is really, it's tax assessor information about, basically influences the value or the rate at which your property is being taxed.
Right.
I would be fine with excluding it as well, personally.
Okay.
I think the more important map is the zoning, like the zoning map is the important information.
I agree.
For our purposes.
I think if this is going to confuse people, then yeah, it's called land use as opposed, which is different than zoning. So yeah, it got a lot of comments on this one. So, okay, well then the next one we go to is the zoning one, which is number 25. Here, the only thing there you go. So it looked like to me he did not have just the most recent map because he still has B2. Oh wait, maybe he does. Where'd it go?
To me, it looked okay.
Okay, there's
like this has the land resort overlay and the gateway business and the MSMU.
Right. Okay, so that's the most up to date one. So that one should be fine. Yeah. I still think it's good to have it here because otherwise it's hard to find this one. You know, it says it's attached to the town code, but it's not, you know, stuff like that. So I think it's good to have it here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. 28 was the next one I have. 28. Oh, regulated facilities. Okay. So one of the things that was suggested was to have like salt storage facilities and so forth. I think we can get that from DPW for active ones, the current active ones. He suggested if it's possible, the fire department maintains a list of buried petroleum and propane tanks. I just can't imagine that every single house they would know which one's got a buried tank. But does anybody have strong feelings on this one way or another that we should, what else should be here?
No.
All right.
Is there any other salt storage facility aside from the highway department over here?
I think that's the only one. So the person who commented on this said the old Thruway salt storage facility.
Oh, the Thruway one is right over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, over here.
Across from the toll booths.
Yeah.
You know, so.
SUNY have any? Or like Walden Pond or any of the shopping centers?
I don't know.
Huh. We can check with DPW on that one. Let's see.
This should show like the closed landfill on it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have him fix that. Okay, let's go back to 26. This is another one. This is for agricultural parcels, districts, and farmland. And yeah, there was some concern that there's things that are called active agriculture that are not. There's things that are active ag that aren't. There's said non-ag use, but like Huguenot Farm is coded as residential, even though it's a CSA. And then also the colors were getting confusing for people. He said he could adjust the colors, but It's the assessment codes. He's using the assessment codes for this, so.
Mhm.
I guess we're just gonna have to figure out how to address, if someone knows, specifically that something's designated as active agriculture and it's where the great blue heron rookery is, it's clearly not active agriculture anymore, but somehow it's that way on the assessor's list.
Well, no, I think he was relying on some land cover data that was shown in a different map, that really detailed county land cover data. And I think for some reason that was picking up that area maybe as having very like the low vegetation, and that was why it was mapping it as agriculture.
Yeah. Okay. We'll let him.
I think this just highlights the difficulty in mapping what's actually farmed.
For sure.
There's just no single source of information.
Right. Okay, so then real quickly, Ingrid, if you want to go up to, most of your comments were on the earlier maps, the lower number ones, if you want to go and just.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my comments. Yeah, there was.
You had a comment even on the base map, I think, the number one.
Yeah, I think I covered that before, which is basically, let me open that up. The same one about perhaps just changing the legend to say public and protected land with public access.
Yeah, okay. Leaf off, leaf on.
The air photo.
Yeah.
This is not that important. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I prefer the leaf off imagery for actually seeing
Easier
stuff on
to
the ground,
see.
but I'm not probably going to be looking at this map for that anyway. So honestly.
Okay. In a way, I kind of like it shows that we have a lot of wooded areas, but.
Yeah, my observation is that most people who don't do remote sensing prefer this leaf on image. So that's fine.
Okay, all right. On topography, you suggested using the abbreviation FT instead of, and that shows up better, I think, too. That's a good idea.
Which map is that? Is that 3?
4.
4. Yeah, this one is kind of hard to read.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how it'll be on the web map, but yeah, he used that little tick symbol for foot.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if that's better.
I like using FT better too. That way no one misses it or thinks it's minutes and seconds. It's some kind of latitude, longitude thing.
There was the soil map. What was that? Oh, is this? I just wanted to point out this Bloomsburg formation thing is incorrect.
Oh.
Apparently, should be the Shwangam conglomerate or whatever, like the Shwangam stuff. Anyway, I made a note of that.
Okay, very good. And let's see what else she had.
Oh yeah, this we don't need to.
You live in a swamp deposit. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, this stuff is just, it was mapped at a statewide level and it's not highly accurate.
Yeah, I think he kind of points that out too. So
yeah,
we'll have to. Hopefully, in the text they make note of that. You didn't on 8 the soil drainage. You didn't like the colors are pretty icky. It's pretty hard to tell what's what.
Yeah, I think he could change the colors and make it better.
Okay, we'll suggest that. On 9 watersheds.
Again, I do think this highlights like the yellow color here though. I just wanted to point out like that. So all of these areas that are kind of beige or trending yellow are basically like the possible and probable wetland areas in the town.
Huh.
At a very coarse scale. Of course, they're not all wetlands, but it just kind of shows you the pattern.
Yeah.
Based on soil. Okay.
Okay.
It's getting late. Any other particular ones you want me to show?
So is this one 9? Is this watersheds and water quality?
Yeah, I thought in particular, so in recent years, you know, there's been all of the work, the monitoring work done in the Tributary 13 watershed, and there were kind of those initial efforts at possibly organizing some work in the Mill Creek. Is that the one that runs through SUNY? And there's also been some work on the Kleinkill. Like, it just seems like we could have some sub-watershed boundaries here to show those different drainage areas.
Mm-hmm.
And that could correspond with in the text with a little summary about that work.
So if he gets this project that you're talking about,
the data exists.
Okay. Does he know where it is?
Yeah, he does.
Okay. All right. So we'll point him back to that. Okay, great. Great. Okay. So I think that was most of it. So I know we've gone through this kind of quickly and jumping around everybody. So if you had any questions or thoughts about it, or if you don't agree with something that's been said, now's your time to speak up. Because then we'll send him all the feedback from you guys and also from CWASP and other folks, Historic Preservation Committee, and then he'll come back with another set. You know,
there'll still be one more round of revisions, right?
Yeah, for sure. So far he was just taking the comments. These are the maps prior to any revisions. He just got the original comments plus Nate's comments, and he responded back saying, I can do this, I can't do this, I don't know what you're talking about, you know, looking for more input on a lot of these. So we just want to get back to him and say, yeah, we really want you to do this, or we all agree that this is fine, or we still have a question about this, or we'll provide you, you know, you need to go find something else. So yeah, we don't have the next set. So there'll be another round. And I would hope that at that point we could set up a Zoom meeting with him and go through them. You know, I mean, there's 28 of them. It takes time to go through each one. Hopefully not all of them require a lot of additional review at that point if they haven't had any really significant changes. But yeah. Okay. Everybody's okay? Board stiff? Yes, Ted says yes, he's board stiff. No, he's not. Okay. Thank you, guys.
I want to this is Janelle here, give gratitude to Amanda for really getting in the weeds with this. And I mean, boy, without your leadership, oh my gosh, we would not be where we are. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Janelle. I appreciate your, thank you. But frankly, I mean, Rick's doing all the work and we're just kind of trying to keep it moving along. But
right, but you've been doing that. So that's, yeah. and just administrating the grant.
The grant, yeah. The grants are icky.
That's
okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, they look great.
They do. I'm really excited about this whole project. I just got the invoice for August, and apparently Nan has been working on the report, drafting the report as well, because she generated quite a few hours. So I expect we'll be seeing something from that pretty soon too. So that should be really, really cool, but probably really big and take some time. But I think, again, thank you all for your patience with this, because our matching hours are coming mostly from volunteers like the EnCB and other folks to spend some time looking at these things. So, thank you. Okay, cool.
Okay. For the community preservation update, I don't have much to share on that other than that we're moving into campaign season, and I missed the last meeting. I need to, and I'm going to get information specifically about how people can volunteer if you'd like to help out with the campaign in terms of like phone banking or any other type of assistance leading up to the election for the ballot measure. Ted, do you have updates to share?
Yeah, we had our village environmental policy board meeting last night. We did have quorum and it was recorded. It's already, I think, posted on YouTube if you're interested in watching. Don Kerr is our liaison to the planning board. He's on vacation, so we didn't have a specific update, although Ariana gave us an update on some of the things that are going on with the planning board. The village planning board has a couple of new members, so they're doing some training. They're catching up with things. Nothing new has been added or proposed with the Lalo group project at the pit, for those that are familiar with it. So nothing more has been submitted right now. We, as the environmental policy board, we discussed doing or saying or making a statement proactive. We decided not to, or there was no vote, no action taken on that particular project. The Stewarts with the traffic light issue is still being discussed. Nothing has been finalized yet with the DOT. No claims, no announcements. We'll talk about the town. No action's been taken on plastic bags. Residential refuse, one hauler, still maintaining or still going on. So Bee City, and if Rose wants to comment in, she certainly can, but Bee City and the ecoscaping of the village hall is a kind of a combined effort. There's a planting schedule now for in front of the village hall, proposed by a high school student who's working on that. He's taken some soil samples, finding out what kind of soil or what kind of plants would be supported in that soil type. And here come fall, there'll be a planting day scheduled for that. It's funded out of the EnCB's budget. No update on idling law or fossil fuel facilities. We're going to be looking at our website. We asked about budget. We got about $1,000 a year. It's been spending about $500 last couple of years on that. We talked about the Henry Du Bois Empire State Trail going up and down the roadway. It was a topic of a special meeting, but no action was taken. It was noted that the draft plan has not yet been finalized or distributed. And we adjourned after about an hour. So,
do you have any? I know this isn't the village, but do you have any update on the solar project at the landfill?
No, we're still, or that project is still working through the negotiations with the solar developer, HESP. I think here within the next couple of weeks there'll be things distributed as to. You know, the town board had asked for 2 proposals, one for just on the landfill and one for the landfill and the area adjacent.
Okay. Yeah, because that's been ongoing now for a few months, right?
Almost a year now.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, since the board asked for the 2 proposals, I think we talked about it back in March, right?
Yeah, it was about, I think, January, February that the town board asked for 2 proposals.
Right.
That's all.
Thanks. Awesome. Janelle, would you like to give a Climate Smart update?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I came from the joint board meeting where we were talking about the Climate Smart Resiliency Planning Tool, but I'm also distracted because my son is out in Oregon in Medford, surrounded by those fires. So it's been a very stressful 24 hours. I'm not sure what Amanda already told you, but hopefully all of you are getting the newsletter. We have kind of 3 projects ongoing right now. Obviously, the NRI that Amanda just went through with you, and the flood mapping, and also the Climate Smart Resiliency Planning Tool. And that was just presented to the Joint Town and Village Board this evening, and well received. So that was good. We also are continuing, of course, to do our monthly Climate Smart Book Club, which has generated a lot of really great discussions. And the next one is coming up next week, the 15th. And the book that we're reading is Rising, and it's Rising Dispatches from the New American Shore by Elizabeth Rush. Very good book. So that's at 7 o'clock on the 15th. And know that once in a while, we all have a lot to do. People have joined the Zooms even without having read the book to just be part of the conversation, and that's totally fine. And then we continue to do our monthly meetups. Last month, our meetup was on light pollution and dark sky friendly lighting, which was very interesting, just learning more about, it's kind of a win-win-win-win because if you use the right lighting, it's the best efficiency, while simultaneously making sure that there is no uplighting, that there's a word I'm looking for, I'm not catching it. It's a directed light.
Sky glow, was it sky glow?
That's the phenomena, but the type of lighting. I was curious after the Zoom, I thought, well, if a person was just trying to find this lighting, how hard would it be to find? So I thought, well, a lot of people go to Amazon. I'll just Google or search within Amazon. And if you just put dark sky lighting, that was enough of a tag to have it work. And most of the lighting that it showed me was indeed dark sky lighting. So that was good. One of the things that we just touched on, I'd actually would have loved to have gotten a entomologist on the call, but I was surprised. I couldn't really find a local entomologist, but just to address the issue of how insects are so attracted to these lights. And our insect population is in such demise that it certainly doesn't need one more thing to draw them in and kill them. So I think that's yet another reason to really encourage people to use appropriate lighting. So, one of the things that we talked about is that it might be really time to do some kind of code, write this, codify this so that there is direction to people building that they consider dark sky lighting. So,
Janelle, yeah, we had some recommendations that we submitted in our comments on the gateway rezoning related to lighting that were based on recommendations from Dutchess County Planning. And the feedback from the attorney was that, rather than put those into the gateway zoning, that it should be kind of a town-wide thing, and which makes sense, but we never pursued it further. So I can send that information along to you.
Yeah,
I do think it would be worth pursuing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar now that I think back. Yeah, I forgot about that. Please, yeah, if you can dig it up, that'd be great. And our next meetup that we're having is on March, where am I? COVID started in March, that's when my brain is. October 6th at 6. And that topic is water management tips for residential landscaping. And so Mark Massio with Calico Nursery will be our presenter. And it's interesting because, just having come off of the joint board meeting with the presentation on the Climate Smart Resiliency Planning Tool, one of the key things that they suggested was that we seek training opportunities for municipal staff in flood mitigation. So, that's at the level of municipal staff, and our meetup happens to be at the level of community members. What can individual homeowners do? So I'm looking forward to that meetup. We're always looking for presenters and topics to cover. The kind of general theme is climate smart things that people can do in their own lives to implement, to mitigate and adapt to climate change. So if there are things that any of you think of, or presenters that you think would be interested, please let Amanda or I know, because it's nice to get ahead of the game in the schedule, and so people can anticipate different topics that we have coming up. Amanda, can you think of things I didn't cover?
No, I think you did cover it very well. Do you know if the presentation that Melinda gave tonight on the climate smart resiliency planning tool, was it a pretty short little slide set or something that we might have available that we could either put on our website or show at one of our meetings?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as I was watching it. I'm like, oh gosh, do we already have these slides? These slides are good. Yeah. I was gonna get on my email and, like, if you haven't seen them, then no, I guess we don't have them yet. So
no, we don't have any slides. We just had the report. Yeah.
Okay, I will email Melinda and Brent and thank them for their presentation tonight and ask for those, because
Okay,
that would be very helpful.
Very good.
Yeah. Amanda, I have to ask you, one of the questions that I got in the chat was, so what did we have to pay for this? Well, how much did we have to use? I'm like, I said something like, well, we were told we were rock stars and we didn't have to pay for it. And I think they didn't believe me, or I think it was, I'm not sure, Ariana was asking. It's like, no, we really did not have to pay for that. So, right?
That's right. It was for free.
Yeah.
It was for free.
Yeah, so that was good.
Yep. And they spent some time on it, certainly. I mean, there were several meetings and review of data and collecting, gathering lots of input, and then putting the report together and presenting it. So
yeah, I liked the recommendations. I couldn't do a good job of covering them all, but one of them, I wondered if any of you know about this, the Nature Conservancy Community Resilience Building Workshop. Anybody familiar with that? I see Ingrid's nodding your head.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have value?
I'm not sure how much is covered in that workshop that you may have already done. I guess that's what I would check out.
Yeah.
I have the feeling like maybe you're further along already.
As an aside, remember the issue that we talked about, trying to provide landowners with more guidance on what trees to plant? And I shared with you George Roper's list. And and then last night, I kind of was Googling around and found a couple of professors over at Cornell that I emailed and got. I didn't forward you the response yet, but it was equally kind of, I don't know what's the word I want to say, short-sighted, because it basically said, oh, just look on the Cornell website, any of these trees are fine. Just look for the ones that are drought resistant. And I didn't respond to her yet, but I'm thinking that's kind of off the mark, because yeah, we might have some drought and maybe that's what kills the trees the fastest, but we also are really going to get a lot more precipitation and it's going to be warmer. I just fear that, this really isn't being looked at. And I think it would be a good thing to continue to try to drill down a little bit. And, I think of our conversation at the beginning of this meeting, just talking about, responding to homeowners that want to cut a tree down. And, if we can, provide some guidance that's very specific on what we recommend based on climate change, I think that has value. And perhaps what I've been looking for doesn't exist, and we'll have to just kind of create it for our, growing zone.
Let me look into that further. I feel like there have to be folks from Cornell Cooperative Extension who are thinking about this, other folks at DEC. So
I would appreciate
I
it.
want to look into it a little bit more.
Yeah, and after the call tonight, I'll forward you the emails I got back from the two professors that I did reach out to.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it might even be something that Nate Nardi Cyrus can work on. I think he may have done, he's mentioned to me that he had kind of put together some planting recommendations when he worked at Scenic Hudson that took climate adaptation into consideration. So I'll ask him about that too.
And if we can pull this together, this would be an awesome meetup. Have some arborists or landscapers and really drill down on what is recommended and why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've heard different tree experts express different, levels of concern about it seems like a lot of foresters and forest ecologists aren't most concerned about climate change in terms of forests. There are other more pressing and urgent concerns related to deer primarily, and invasive species and forest diseases and pests coming in.
Which could also be changing because of climate change, with less harsh winters and things like that.
Yeah. Oh my God, we were just in the Adirondacks. I mean, this is not forest diseases, but the rodents were out of control. We came back with mice, mice moved into our car, even though we were very vigilant about trying to keep the car closed. We've trapped, we caught 2 of them so far.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about the lifespan of some of these trees. It's a long time. We can't just be thinking what's going to do good in the next 2 years. These are not perennial little ornamental plants. These should be planting for the next generation.
Yeah. Anyway, and the rodents were I guess just because the winter was so mild, nothing was killed off. The last item I have here is that example of the wetlands law brochure, which is from Woodstock, and it would be really great if we could put something like that together, and that might be a nice small project for 1 or 2 people to work on, perhaps in conjunction with Stacy, if she could review it. And I don't know if anybody's interested in taking that on.
Ingrid, is there any reason you can't just use wood stocks? I mean, I look.
We have to tailor it. I'm sure they would be fine. I can ask if we have permission to adapt it. I don't think they'd have an issue with us using any of the content they had there.
Good. Because I didn't see anything that was grossly not, consistent with our wetlands law. So.
No, it just has to be tailored.
Ingrid, if you get the file or get that communication set up, I'll take it from there.
Okay.
And were you proposing that you needed something similar for the tree permitting?
I thought we could potentially put together something similar for the tree law. Joe Bergstein had put together a 1-pager thing about the tree law several years ago, but maybe that suffices. And again, I don't know. I'm not really sure how that would be. The wetland law thing, I think it's much more applicable because it's the sort of thing if people are going in to see Stacy, or it can be posted on the building department's website, you know, a little like FAQ kind of document by Janelle. And whereas with the tree thing, it's like every property owner in the town potentially, you know, needs to be aware of the tree law, and
Right.
most of them are not. Yeah, so we don't really have a budget. Like, we could think about, in that case, somehow getting a notice put in with something else that's going out to property owners, like a, you know, like a tax
the
bill.
property tax bill, yeah.
Yeah. Here's your tax bill, and by the way.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't know. Yeah. So there's, in terms of announcements, I didn't list it here, but the Hudson River Watershed Alliance has a great series going on right now about stream and stream buffer protection over the next few weeks. The first one was today. So I can did you guys all get that announcement by any chance? Are you on their list? Some of you, maybe. I'll send it around. Have any of you been able to take advantage of training opportunities like webinars this year? I know we talked at the beginning of the year about trying to do some training. Cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of webinars out there, so it's easy to, you don't have to go in person.
There's been some good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, Janelle, maybe you should mention the Zoom thing tomorrow about solar panels over parking lots.
Janelle already left.
Oh, she did? Have you been copied on any of this? So this is coming out of Rockland County, where they've got a group that's called Green Up Rockland or something like that. But looking at, I mean, there's parking lots in Rockland County that have solar panels over parking lots now. And so this is a group that was sort of getting interested in that concept. It just seems like there's a space, and why not, you know, consider using it for that purpose. But then there was, you know, the financials, incentives, things like that, like what would be. So anyway, there's a kickoff, there's a start off of a meeting that people in New Paltz are interested in pursuing this, I guess. But I think it's more of a, it may be sort of a interregional or kind of, you know, sharing of it, ideas and information. So I'll ask Janelle to send you guys the Zoom link. So anybody who wants to can, it's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Right after Emily's Hudson River Watershed breakfast talk.
Yeah, that the breakfast speaker series is once a month thing, and Dave Strayer is talking tomorrow morning about economic values of water resource conservation,
Right.
which should be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. All right, well, I guess I also mentioned like the CEA thing I have not forgotten it, and I should have probably put it on discussion items, other than to say my intention in the past month was to follow up with town board members, and instead I had a health issue I was dealing with, and a lot of stuff went on the back burner. So I still need to do that, and I was also trying to organize and pull together all of the public comments that were submitted on the proposal, and I haven't finished that. So I kind of need to get organized, and I mentioned to Yoni that I might follow up with you about talking about an approach to discussing bringing this up again, because the public hearing is technically still open. And I just haven't heard anything from the town board about it.
I think, yes, I think that's a tactic. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I guess I also want to bring up, and this wasn't on the agenda, but just that, you know, I've been serving as chair of the board for
your whole life.
No. I don't even remember. I don't remember when yeah.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. I am interested in stepping down as chair. I would like to step down as chair at the end of this year. And I'm not really sure how to approach that, but I want you all to know that. And if you want to have any conversations with me, if you have any thoughts about how we should proceed, that would be great. Don't want to leave everyone in the lurch, but I need to step back a little bit.
Could we create an advisory board where you would be on the advisory board rather than having to run all the meetings? And then we could at least have your expertise as needed. I know I belong to the Ulster County Beekeepers, and they just put me on the advisory board because I have administrative experience, but I'm not a great beekeeper, you know. But you are a great environmentalist, and we could use your expertise as an advisor. And I don't know if it's allowed. I don't know what the code says, but if we could have an advisory board of experts, and then you wouldn't keep getting also people saying, "Oh, look at her. She works for the DEC and she's sharing this thing." And you know, people do that. Rather, we'll have people who know the stuff that we're working with and who we can ask for advice. Because like Susan, I don't understand everything that we're doing, but I have a strong commitment to the environment. And I have other skills, but you know, they're not, this is not my field. So I would like to just put that out there because we need you. You also know all the players. You know, I know all the players in my field in education, but I don't know all the players in the field of environmental, and you know them locally. It's a big loss to us if you step down, but maybe we can, you know, mitigate that loss by having an advisory board that people can call on. I have these giant yellow jackets in my house, and they like
Uh-oh.
This one's stuck in my house. It won't let me let him out. He's running around me now. And I look like hell. I just came back from a Black Lives Matter march in Kingston. So sorry. But so I'm just putting that out there. Maybe we could ask the town board to see if we can have an advisory board to lend their expertise to us and make us more effective, because we won't be as effective if we're all a bunch of volunteers. We see this in school boards. People who don't have any expertise in education and running the schools, they don't know what the heck they're doing. And so it's a very similar situation. So let's like think about it. I don't want to put that on now. I also want to say that Bee City has an intern, and Bee City is not dead. It's just that we were kind of dormant during the pandemic. And I got very old during the pandemic. I have to say that too. And so I became very vulnerable. So I'm, you know, I have been staying in my house. My kids are bringing my groceries. I don't go out. And so Bee City has slowed down, but it's still alive. We have a discussion group that we formed this week, including the village and the town.
Oh, good.
And that's still going to happen. So that idea is just out there. I hope that we can do something to maintain our relationship with you, Ingrid, without being such a burden. I understand that you have a beautiful young daughter. You have a family. You have a job. All that.
Yeah, I haven't. I should say I haven't decided about actually, you know, about stepping down from the board. I would like to step, you know, maybe to being a member, but I you know, this is a crazy time, and yeah, it's hard to foresee what, you know, how things are going to go over the next several months. But yeah, it's been a a hard year.
Yeah.
All of us, we all share your pain.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that for all of you for continuing to show up, because this is, you know, it's hard. It's hard not to be able to meet in person, and everything is kind of going more slowly, I think, than we would like. But, yeah.
I know it's late now, but I had kind of like a question or a, I don't know. And if people want to tune, I don't know, I could wait till everyone's done. And if anyone wants to just talk for a minute, because I had something happen that kind of dealing with one of our rules, our laws that we put up as a town. And it's caught me now. And I just kind of seeing it from the other end right now and don't know what to do or where to go next. So I don't know if anyone, you know, I know it's really late, or if anyone has just a couple of minutes to try and, you know, listen for a minute.
Well, we are recording right now. Is it something you want to talk about during the meeting or offline?
I think it should be offline. I think it's a personal issue.
Okay. I'm around if you want to have a call. I can. Sure, I have your number handy, but.
It's 750-4811. If you have just a couple minutes just to ask you. Okay.
Sure. I'll give you a call.
Okay. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
I was just going to suggest that I move to end our meeting.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.